All right, so I'm replacing the fuel pump on my 2000 Cadillac Catera. I don't know how many people will want to watch this video. I'll do my best to show you what it takes to replace it. I've already replaced it. I'm in the process of putting stuff back together. It's easier than I thought it would be personally. I did take the fuel door off, but that's because mine's kind of broken and I'm looking to fix it. So that has nothing to do with replacing the fuel pump. However, there is a seal and gasket here. You can see the fuel filler is right here. You want to make sure that as you lower it very slowly that you help this seal come out, because you could easily rip it, especially with it being 25 years old. As far as dropping the tank, I do have the front wheels chalked, and I'm doing this as carefully as I can. I have jack stands and then backup jack stands. Getting in here. So it was easier than I was expecting it to be. I was going to have to take off a bunch more stuff. I'm replacing the fuel filter as long as I'm doing it. So I took that off first. And a bunch of gas got everywhere. You'll want a bucket to catch gas because these hold a lot of fuel in them. Then I took the ground strap off as part of that as well, because that was attached to the fuel filter. There's a vent tube. It's on the ground over there. I didn't know what that was, but it's just a vent tube, and it hooks up to the same spot here where the ground strap is. That does not need to be taken off. I thought it did. But it doesn't. So then I took off just the bolt on the back of the straps. They're 17 millimeter. I left the front ones tight, and then I slowly dropped the tank down. You kind of have to wiggle it to get the fuel filler neck out of the way, but it comes out pretty easily. And that's really it. As far as getting the pump itself out, there's this rubber gasket thing. I thought it was a separate piece, but it's part of the ring. So you have to take that off, and there's this band that comes off pretty easily. It's an utter pain to get back on. That's what I'm struggling to do right now, is get this back on. All right, there we go. All right, so you have two hoses. One's return, one's the for the pump. I think this one's what the pump is hooked into, and this is the return. You have two plugs, one here, one there. The hoses, see them back there. I left one of the clamps on the one to tell me that was the one that goes on the right. The one without the clamp is the one that goes on the left. And then there's the two plugs. Here is the vent tube that feeds down the front and hooks into right here. Again, that doesn't necessarily need to be removed. It did make things a little bit easier though. You're going to have to have new clamps because it has the one-time use clamps, and you're going to mangle those getting them undone. I did buy the tool to get the lock ring off. I've never owned one before. I've always just used a big punch. All right, so here's the tool. It's like 25 bucks at O'Reilly's, other parts place. And this made it so much easier to get that lock ring off. It's one of those tools I wish I'd bought years ago, but I didn't know how many fuel pumps I was going to be replacing. So definitely get yourself this. You just don't have a lot of room in here, and this makes it a lot easier. It felt like I was breaking it to do it. Then when you go to fish the pump out, here's the pump here. It sits in there, I believe, like this, and you have to grab these three locking tabs, squeeze, and lift up to get out. It has a much longer hose on it than the replacement has, but I was still able to get the replacement in without issue. This is one of those one-time use clamps. They're terrible. I'm sure they're great for assembly or whatever because they're quick, but you can't reuse them, and they're really hard to get off. I used a pair of snips. So I'm doing this one-handed, just a second. And I just came in here while it was together and just grabbed it and then kind of pulled and twisted up, and it unlatched the clamp clip. So that's really it. Pretty simple. It hasn't taken me very long. Longer than I'd want it to, but with the amount of having to figure things out that I've had to do, and the trip to the hardware store or the auto parts store to get the tool, you know, a couple hours to do it by myself, and it's definitely worth doing myself and not paying a mechanic to do, I don't think. The big issue is the fuel pump. I did buy it from Rock Auto. It's a name brand pump, but for this car specifically, everything is really old and been sitting on a shelf for a long time, and kind of makes me nervous that it might not be a good pump. It worked off the bench, so, but I've also had pumps that I've put in that lasted, you know, a month or two, and then they died, and I'm hoping that that's not the case in this instance. Anyways, if you have any questions, feel free to ask those down below. I'll do my best to answer. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.